What's good? This is your boy Internal Sadist, and this stream is going to be about women's real value, uh, women's real value versus fake value for all intents and purposes. So this should be a fun stream. Everybody sit back and enjoy. Put on your seatbelts and enjoy this lovely ride. One of the many things I've noticed about a lot of women in this day and age is there's always their inflated value versus their actual value. Um, Problem is how people perceive them. The problem is how they're perceived in society. Because the sad part about that is the funny thing about it is guys always emphasize or always place a very high value on them for all intents and purposes. And the sad part about that, when you do that, you make them seem like they're unattainable, or you make them seem like as if they're out of reach, or a very hard goal, or a very hard task to catch or get or follow, or something like that for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's like you have to be very realistic as a man about things like this, because if you don't, you'll get yourself into a huge mess with this whole entire thing, and then you'll wonder why you'll wonder why everything is jacked up or the way it is for all intents and purposes, because or you'll wonder why it is that you're having this hard time with attaining people. The problem is, what's up, Americus? What's up, New Era? I mean, Elder. Um, the problem with a lot of people is, well, especially men, is they put way way too much value on women, especially guys who, especially guys who simp up to them and stuff like that, and especially the guys who, some most times punch down or date down for all intents and purposes to bring people up, or that'll just need to get their rocks off, so they just sleep with the easiest target for all intents and purposes, and then all of a sudden this person believes now she believes that she's this, she deserves this now because she done got this guy for one night for all intents and purposes, and so now she believes that she's this value. And the sad part about that is, one, men gotta stop doing that crap, and two, men gotta have standards. Another thing that makes it so it's impossible to gauge what a woman's value is their overinflation of their ego, or the overinflation of their value when it comes to society. Because men will, like, always. Because a good example of that is, you can't be mad at the ethod for being an ethod. Who you can be mad at is the simps who supply the ethod. It's typically what I've always stated and said. Because at the end of the day, a simp is nothing more than a guy that's a rug pull away from being in a manosphere for all intents and purposes. Um, and people seem to forget about that, or people seem to always, brush that off or sweep that under the rug and stuff along the lines of that. And they wonder why, it is that, there's this high amount of value placed on women for the fact that everybody's placed them on pedestals for so long. Now they believe that they deserve to be on this pedestal. It'd be nothing more than, think of it like a participation trophy. Um, Everybody gets one who participated for all intents and purposes, and that's typically how you should view it when you're actually approaching women. That's typically how you should view it when you're actually in a presence of one too. It's nothing more than a participation trophy, because that's pretty much what it is. Because you also got to take inspiration too. Anything she's going to do is going to be easy recruit mode, or tutelage mode, whereas you're going to have to actually work extra hard to actually do You're actually going to have to work extra hard to actually do what you need to do to succeed in life or be anything in life for all intents and purposes. Thanks. I'll appreciate that. You're going to have to do anything and everything in your power to be able to make yourself a better human being or make yourself better or make yourself or basically give yourself the better situations or opportunities in life where she could just pretty much sit there and have her ass hanging out or have her titties popping out the top of her shirt. Either way, you know it's always going to be easy recruit mode when it comes down to it. And the thing that I've always noticed with men is they always seem to over. I mean, it's one thing if you're with the woman and you want to do this. I don't always condone it, but if that's your bag, that's your bag. It's another thing if the person doesn't deserve it and you're just giving them showering them with unconditional attention and love and affection for no reason when you're not even dating a person in the least bit, and they're not your relative for all intents and purposes. Now you're really blowing up somebody's ego and you're making their value much higher than it needs to be for all intents and purposes, especially if it's not family members and or your person you're actually dating. You should never blow up somebody else's ego or inflate somebody's value that don't deserve to be inflated. Um, Something I've always noticed about the market something I've always noticed about the market when it comes to women. The thing about it is the thing about it is like view it like this. I made this analogy for another thing. View view women the same way you would view going to the supermarket hungry. Never go to the supermarket hungry. In other words, because at the end of the day, once you think about it, if you've ever been to the supermarket and you've been in the supermarket on an empty stomach and you've been starving, you tend to buy a lot of shit that you normally wouldn't buy or you really don't need. It's typically how that shit works. So it's one of those things where you have to be able to get rid of that before you actually go shopping or get rid of that hunger before you go out and engage in the world for all intents and purposes. Because you don't ever, yeah. Because they always say you never want to go shopping on an empty stomach, or you never want to go shopping when you're starving. Because the problem with that is now you're actually inviting you're inviting very bad things, and for your wallet for all intents and purposes. If you go shopping while hungry, you're going to end up with like especially if you're on a diet too, you're going to destroy that diet in a heartbeat if you're going shopping hungry. Um, and yeah, pretty much is like that. Yeah. The neat thing about it is if you can look at it like a supermarket and not going to the supermarket hungry, you could tend to stave off a lot of the bull crap that you would have to deal with when it comes down to it, which is pretty interesting when it comes to men. Being able to control your base instincts is both good and very beneficial to a man, because you're not nervous and you're able to be very nonchalant around people for all intents and purposes, and that's always the best to be. It's best to be always be look or appear nonchalant for all intents and purposes um, when you're around a group of people. Because at the end of the day, there's something about the value of there's something about there's something that raises the value of a man who really doesn't need to stick his dick in every single woman for all intents and purposes. Um, because now that makes you unattainable, and now that makes you more of a commodity that everybody wants for all intents and purposes. The less likely you are to engage in a behavior, the more your value actually goes up as a man for all intents and purposes. The best way I can describe it to you. And when men can sustain from it or you know get away from doing it, it tends to make for a better overall situation for men, and it tends to make for a better overall value and ranking situation for men as well too. Because the sad part about that is, view it like this: if you can actually put off your base cardinal desires It would be like if you, we'll say, walked in a room full of women and you didn't pay any of them no mind. That would be like a glitch in the matrix for all intents and purposes is the best way I can describe it to you. If you actually walked in a room with a room full of women that were naked and you paid none of them no mind. It's all about being focused and always keeping your focus clear and always keeping standards about you and keeping your wits about you in the same token. Because you can always be distracted if you're not willing to actually have the discipline to improve yourself or better yourself as a human being. And that's what the channel is all about: improving yourself better as a human being, and making yourself the best version of you, no matter who you are, no matter what your sexual orientation is, no matter what got going on in your life. It's all about improving yourself, no matter what's going on. At the end of the day, the less you pay attention, the more they pay attention. For all intents and purposes, the best way to describe it. Because if you're not really thinking about it, trust me, one of them are thinking about it. Um, and that's pretty much how this whole entire thing works. It's like the value is based on inflated numbers that are undeserving for all intents and purposes. Um, a good example of that is a good example of that, and a good way to actually view it is view her like you would. I'm trying to think of how to say this one. Be view her as if you would. You should always. A woman's always as good. A woman's value is as good as her last relationship or her last decision. Um, that's the best way I could put it to you. A woman's only as good as her last relationship or her last decision. So if her last relationship was shit, the question is why was she in that relationship and why does she stay in that relationship? So therefore, that's where your value actually is. If her last relationship was good, then that's where her value actually is. So she's been in good relationships and nothing but good relationships. That's her value. She's been in nothing but shit relationships, then that 10 or that 8 or that 9 is not going to be her value for all intents and purposes. It's one of those things where it's like you never overinflate something, never overvalue something that that doesn't deserve that value. Um, a good example of that is when we always have the ranking things in these lovely live streams that I always do with that I'm essentially going to be doing one later with True Sherm, a collab with True Sherm and them. Um, it's kind of like when we do the games where we actually rank people based on our beliefs, and you always hear me say Colombian 3-4 at best or something like that. I would say I would give her a Colombian 3 or 4 at best, and that's typically a more realistic ranking when it comes to ranking ranking people and women. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it's not just her beauty. There's more to that. There's more to that as far as character and other things that actually gives them their full ranking for all intents and purposes. Because there's a lot of Colombian women that think they're beautiful, but they're really 3s or 4s or 5s or something like that. But you know, there's other women who actually have more value based on what they can do or what they have to offer for all intents and purposes. So they tend to get ranked a little bit higher than most other women. Hell, there's Colombian models who get ranked at a 3 or 4. I mean, that get ranked at a 5 or 6, basically based on their actually overall intrinsic value to a man. Um, even trophy wives get ranked. Even Colombian trophy wives get ranked very low. Um, so this is more of a realistic way to look at a lot of people, especially women, when it comes down to it, because the more you can actually look at them more realistic, the less intimidating they tend to become for all intents and purposes when you want to approach them or when you want to talk to them or when you want to speak game to them. They become less intimidating for all intents and purposes, and it's not as scary as everybody makes it out to be. They're not as scary as everybody makes them out to be when you can actually approach them and anything like that. Um, and that's typically how you should actually make your relationships work or value relationships for all intents and purposes. is based on not what she looks like, not because she has her ass and tits hanging out, is like what she has to offer you for all intents and purposes. If she has nothing to offer you but ass and tits, then what is her real value? It's going to be a low value. It's going to be a low score for all intents and purposes. But the sad part about that in the Western worlds and Americas, it's like it's America. It's like we tend to overinflate, or overblow, or overhype somebody's value for all intents and purposes based on the fact they're in a movie, or the fact that they're a woman, or the fact that they are are a football player and stuff like that for all intents and purposes. When in fact, if you actually go to other countries, those same people are on your level. Whereas in America, we glorify these people and put them on a pedestal. Other countries, you're pretty much eating lunch with them. It's typically how that works. And the sad part about that, I've always noticed that about Americans when it comes down to it, is this the people that they put on pedestals are nothing more than people that put their they put their foot and leg in their pants, one pant leg at a time. It's not like, they run and jump into their pants. They literally put their pant leg on one pant leg at a time. Their pants on literally one pant leg at a time. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you often wonder what people are thinking and wonder why people think the way they do. And you wonder why they tend to perceive or put people this way. Um, what's up, Americans? What's up, Manny AD in the house? Yeah. What's up, Manny AD? Thanks for showing up, Pimpin. What's up, McTown to win? Thanks for showing up. The sad part about that is when you can actually control your urges better, or you can control your racing thoughts better, or when you have more discipline to do so, you tend to be able to overcome your base carnal instincts, or your base desires for all intents and purposes when you have the discipline to do so. It'd be no different than if you were working out at the gym and you put yourself on a schedule and you stuck to the schedule. It would be no different than that for all intents and purposes. Um, and this is typically how you should view it, like you would a workout routine, or a diet, or what you're going to eat for dinner versus what you're not going to eat for dinner, what's going to make you fat versus what's going to make you healthy. You should always view it that way, and that's exactly how you should view, is it healthy for you or is it not healthy for you when it comes to the opposite sex. Is she healthy for you or is she not healthy for you? Is she a benefit or a hindrance? um is she going to destroy you, or she's going to help you grow? Stuff like this. This is typically the stuff that you should look for in a woman, or if you're going to be looking for a woman, that is. And this is typically this type of stuff where, you know, where, like I was saying, we overinflate people's value in the Western worlds way more than we actually overinflate their values in a third world country. Like a good example of that is, like, a good example of that is a lot of the baseball players. Anytime, bro. Anytime. Definitely anytime. Let me know when time and I'll be there. Most definitely. Um, the thing about it is when you actually do something, it's like, it's one of those things. Good example of value, intrinsic value, or how people put people on pedestals. Any baseball player that comes from the Dominican Republic, while they're in America, we put them on pedestals, very high on pedestals. When they go home, they're just normal fucking people. That's like real shit. Like, this is something that I never quite understood about American culture. Like, you got all these people on high ass pedestals, but when they go home, they're eating at the regular sodas, they're eating at the regular, the regular restaurants and everything with everybody else. They're rubbing shoulders with all the regular people. That's typically how it works. So it's one of those things that blows my mind when I hear people always overblow or overinflate somebody's actual value, when in fact, when they get back home, like a good example of Big Poppy, uh, David Ortiz, when he goes back home, he's a regular human being. When he comes to America, He's a superstar, and everybody looks up to him, and he's put on a pedestal. That's typically how that shit works, and that's pretty much all it really is. You're basically putting somebody on a pedestal that they're normal people wouldn't even do all that. I mean, don't get me wrong. When they go home, they are admired, but they're not put on a pedestal to the levels that they do in America. That's typically how you should view everybody, as a normal human being. Because the sad part about that, you should never be nervous around anyone, and you should never be 6 p.m. Central Time. I can do that. 6 p.m. Central Time. I can do that. 6 p.m. Central Time, definitely. Um, that's typically how you should look at a lot of. That's typically how you should look at a lot of that stuff. Reject calories, definitely. Reject empty calories, yeah, definitely. Billie Eilish, the same way. Use a trip. McTown away. Um, Pretty much the overall goal is basically, what's up, Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 3. Um, Overall, typically the overall goal is to basically to stop yourself from overinflating or overvaluing somebody in your life, because when you do that, you take yourself off of even ground. And this person's always going to be above you if you over fetishize them or overdo it for all intents and purposes. You never want to do that, and you never want to over you never want to do that, and you never want to overblow somebody's ego or make it so that they are above you. You always want to keep somebody equal to you for all intents and purposes, and or below you. Um, that's typically how that works, because nobody deserves to be nobody deserves nobody deserves your admiration unless you give it to them. Nobody nobody deserves your respect unless they earn it. Nobody deserves to have a high ass score unless they've earned that high ass score. And that's typically the problem that a lot of men have in this day and age. They'll overinflate a woman's ego and then have her on a pedestal thinking she's better than you for all intents and purposes. Now she's treating you like shit and looking down on you and talking down on you for all intents and purposes, when in fact that could have been corrected. That could have been corrected, and you could have fixed that and made it better for all intents and purposes by ranking her ranking her with her proper value, or ranking her with her proper score that she actually deserves. Because, like I said, it don't matter who you are, you don't deserve a high ass score. This is typically why I always rank people the way I do, because I know if I became a movie star here, let's just say Tico Trend, the movie star. Let's just say I'm a movie star here. I'm put on a pedestal. Everybody loves me. Everybody adores me. When I go home, I'm getting treated like a regular person. That's typically how that works. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, treat these people the same way a Latin American would get treated if he went home. Don't get me wrong; they will praise him and they would be proud of him. But at the end of the day, they still treat him like a normal human being. He can still get knocked in the head by mama, or he can still get knocked in the head by the old lady at the corner store. That's typically how that works. You see what I'm saying? Because the sad part about that is you would never outgrow how people view you. Just because you're a movie star in America or the Western world, that don't mean you don't get the same treatment that you would there. You don't get the red carpet treatment that you get in America's at home, for all intents and purposes, is what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, always keep it even killed. Always keep it so you're never, ever, ever overdoing anything, or making it so that you're making yourself less than a person that doesn't deserve to be better than you. Or a good example of that is the people that will always argue with you, that think they're better than you, then come to find out as the argument goes on, you actually have more than what they actually have, but they would have never found that out had the argument not continued on for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's like, why are you giving this person the power, and why are you giving this person the rough shot to run wild all over you for all intents and purposes? You never want to do that, and you never want to be in that situation where you're being treated like you're less than, or you're nothing, or being abused for all intents and purposes. Because typically, this is where a lot of men get fucked up at, or this is where a lot of men end up in relationships where they're abuse victim. Because the sad part about that would contrary to popular belief, men are 10 times more likely to be abused in a relationship by their significant other than the other way around. It's typically how it works. But we sweep that shit under the rug, and we let it we look the other way, and we blame men for being the abusers, when in fact more men get fucked up in relationships than women do by women. I mean, come on now. How many times have you ever witnessed a girl busting the window out of her boyfriend's car, or um, just hitting him for some nondescript shit doesn't deserve the actual violence for doing, for all intents and purposes. And it's one of those things where it's like, are you does the punishment fit the crime? And a lot of times with women, the punishment never really fits the crime. It's one thing if he cheats on you and you want to bust the window out of a car, but it's one of those things where you also got to take a deep look at yourself and realize that, okay, maybe I did fuck up by choosing this person, and maybe I kind of sort of seen this coming, even though I'm mad about it. I kind of sort of seen this coming because I did choose this person, and I did choose to put myself in this situation. So it's always one of those things where, like, you always got to do a self reflection, no matter what sex you are, on the decision you made that landed you in the situation you are. So it's one of those things, as a man, you got to do the self reflection on yourself to make you realize, why is it that she's able to do this to me? Because I've always stated that a person can only do to you what you let them do to you. And that's just facts. So if you let somebody treat you as such, or if you put somebody on a pedestal, or assign somebody such high value that they don't deserve, they have the right, they basically feel as though within themselves they have the right to do anything or say anything or treat you any old type of way for all intents and purposes, because they have this value. They have this intrinsic value that's really not all that valuable, that you pretty much gave them. You basically gave them the power to do whatever the hell they want to you. So never, ever, ever give somebody that kind of power to abuse you. Never give that person the power to lure over you, or to hang over your head, or to bash you over the head with. Because at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's like, you as a human being have to understand your place in life. Your value in life is very important. And if you don't understand your value and you don't understand your worth, you're going to be doomed to repeat yourself in constant abuse. You never want to be in constant abuse. You never want to be treated like shit. You never want to be in a relationship where, like, you're not getting any value out of, or you're not getting any love, respect, and or admiration out of. Like, a good example of that is, if your friends were disrespectful, would they still be your friends? My point exactly. Why accept that? Why accept that from a woman then? If your friends can't be disrespectful and you still maintain your friendship with them, why take that from a woman? Like, think about that. Why take that abuse from a woman when you won't let your friends basically be able to run? If you're not willing to allow your friends or family to do so, don't allow a woman to do so. That's typically how that works, and that's typically how that should work. All right, see you tomorrow. Definitely at 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll see you tomorrow. Definitely, pimping. But it's one of those things where it's like, oh, today. That's today. Never mind. That's not tomorrow. That's today. I might not could do it today because I got to do the True Sherm thing today, the Relentless today at about like 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I might not be able to do that today, Money AD. For to be honest with you, I just realized that was today. But it's one of those things where you never want to put yourself in a position where you're going to be taken advantage of or done wrong or you know you know pretty much raked over the coals or you know done with pretty much dead pretty much you have to take it with no Vaseline for all intents and purposes is the best way I can describe it to you. The only solution to it is the only solution to that whole entire thing is understanding your value and understanding your worth and assessing each person based on their actual intrinsic value versus their overinflated value. It'd be no different if you're going to buy a used car. If you're buying a used car, you're not going to pay top dollar price for a used car. That's just not happening. Even a certified pre-owned car, you're not going to pay top dollar price for that either. You're not going to pay for something. You're not going to pay for a 2016. You're not going to pay 2020 prices for a 2016 for all intents and purposes. Is what I'm telling you. So why put yourself in a position to do that for somebody who doesn't deserve that value or that position in your life for all intents and purposes? Because at the end of the day, you're just as important as the other person you're in a relationship with. Like I always say, when it comes to relationships, there's two people in that motherfucker. You motherfucker and her motherfucker. Y'all both have the same intrinsic value. Sometimes you have more than her, but somehow, some way, you always tend to kick it up to her, give her the much more value than what you deserve for all intents and purposes. You should never do that. You should always, if a person comes in at a certain value, that's where that person actually stays at that value. Never give up, never relinquish power and or your value to somebody else who doesn't deserve to have it. That'd be like, I mean, I look at it like this: would you give your finances over to a perfect stranger? Would you give your banking information over to a perfect stranger? Well, no, then don't do it to that. Don't do it for that person. It'd be no different if you wouldn't give your banking information to your relatives either, unless it was like they were your power of attorney or for something like that. Like you're not going to just give your banking information to some random person. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where it's like you have to be able to assess this properly for the fact that if you don't, you're going to get used and abused in the system. And the system's set up to use and abuse you because how the system is set up is men date down, women date up. That's typically how that works because women ain't dating down. Let's just keep it 100. A woman is not finna date down. A woman's not finna sacrifice her creature comforts for dating down. She'll she'll move sideways or up, but she'll never move back down. She'll never go back, but she'll move sideways or up. I mean, sideways or forward for all intents and purposes, but she'll never go back for all intents and purposes, unless she takes a hard tumble to the bottom that would force her to have to go back. That is the only way. But the sad part about that is she'll always be looking for that branch that she fell from instead of all the other branches on her way up. She'll be looking for, let's just say a good example. She fell from, branch 6. She's not going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on her way back up. She's going to be looking for branch 6 for all intents and purposes. And that's typically how that works because that's how the society's set up, where a woman could do that, but a man can't for all intents and purposes. You literally got to earn that, whereas a woman can pretty much marry into that or date into that or date up into that for all intents and purposes. Whereas you pretty much got to you pretty much got to earn that and work for that type of status, where she can pretty much marry up into that status. It's basically like a good example of that is a lot of the women who marry rich men, or a lot of the women who are part of wealthy families that come from not so wealthy families, or not as influential families. A good example of that is a good example of a family. I'm trying to think of a family that actually has a lot of women who married a lot of women into the family who really don't have the same value as them. And I want to say it was like the Scapes and the Mellons. The Scapes and the Mellons are a good example of men who marry women who are literally dating up for all intents and purposes. The Scapes and the Melons are very notorious for that. Um, they tend to date women who aren't on their level or not even just below their level. They date women who tend to be, a few bells down from what they were normally what most other families would date, like the Carnegies or the Hiltons and stuff like that. Um, they typically they typically date a few ranks down from what they should date down. And the sad part about that, these women actually move up quite often in families like those two families. The sad part about that is the one thing I can say about those two families is their vetting process is damn near flawless, which is actually pretty nice. So they're not just going to be letting any old woman into the family to run off with the millions or billions or trillions of dollars or their wealth in general. Is typically how that works. They tend to vet these women very heavily because you also got to take this reason too. That's a lot of money that's going to be leaving a family that they don't want leaving a family, and they're known for not parting with anything. So it's one of those things where, like with those families, it's always better for the woman to stay in that relationship than it is for the woman to leave that relationship because they're so powerful and they have so much money that even if a woman got a divorce, they're literally walking away with nothing. It's pretty much how it works in those two families, the Scapes and the Melons. If a woman divorces a Scape or a Melon, it's damn near earned. Their prenup is pretty much ironclad. So there's not too many women that actually will divorce a Scape or a Melon for the reason in that literally going to go back to what you came from. You're literally going to go back to your lifestyle before you actually married them, for all intents and purposes, or you're going to go down at least like one or two rungs down from what you were used to. So all this lifestyle of like country clubs and all this shit is pretty much gone if you divorce one of them. You don't get the same benefits and status that they would, for all intents and purposes, if you divorce them. You don't get their money either. I've noticed with a lot of these families too. So it's one of those things that it's one of these things where like you realize as a human being, you realize as a human being that if you know the right people and or have the right pull or clout, you never have to worry about being fucked over for all intents and purposes, unless you fuck over your connects basically, or the judges that you're friends with and go play golf with and go to the same country club with. You never really have to worry about losing the shirt off your back. The higher you move up in the hierarchy, or the more status you get, or the more recognition you get when it comes to families like this, for all intents and purposes, you never really have to worry about losing a shirt off your back or losing, uh, Jeff Bezos billions or Dr. Dre millions and shit like that. So you never really have to worry about that type of stuff when you're a Skate for a Melon. And the sad part about that is what a lot of people actually don't know about Dr. Dre's wife is, despite the fact that she's getting like 2 million out of him, she's actually taking a substantial hit. And this is simply what people don't really realize about Dr. Dre's wife. When she leaves him, she is not going to have the same lifestyle she had while she was with him. The sad part about that, y'all talk about Dr. Dre like y'all talk about Dr. Dre and how he's always getting done wrong, but that $2 million to Dr. Dre and his wife is literally like Bill Gates fast cash setting on at the ATM, for all intents and purposes. Think of it like that. Like that 2 million is not gonna fund her lifestyle in the least bit. That 2 million is not gonna do anything for her. She's gonna blow through that 2 million like it ain't shit. And the sad part about that is she's not getting Jeff Bezos billions. So Mackenzie Bezos is going to take a minute for her to blow through that shit, whereas Dr. Dre's wife is going to blow through that like in about, I'll give her about a year and a half maximum before she blows through that. Hell, and I'm being nice. I really want to say about 8 months to a year, but I'm going to go with a year and a half before she actually blows through all that money. Because that 2 million, let's just put it this way: that 2 million won't even upkeep her. That 2 million ain't even enough for her hairstyles, her clothing, her makeup, and her makeup artist, and all that other great stuff that she got going on in her life. That 2 million won't even cover that shit. So at the end of the day, Dr. Dre is a winner. Jeff Bezos is the loser. And the sad part about that is, at the end of the day, just because Jeff Bezos lost that kind of money, Jeff Bezos already made that money back, though. So Mackenzie Bezos basically divorced her husband, and she better hope she can hold on to that money because her husband already made that money back. And it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, granted, it's a large chunk of money for Jeff Bezos, but the sad part about that is he literally made that money back that he paid Mackenzie Bezos. So it was like it was never missing for him, which is kind of sad and true once you think about it. It was never missing for him because it was like one of those things where it's like he took a minor hit and he got it back 6 months, 3 months, 4 months later, basically. Maybe a year, not even a year later, it took him to get it back. And the sad part about that is, like I was saying, never overvalue a woman. Never overvalue a woman. A woman's value is only as good as her last decisions, her last bad decisions she made, and her last relationship. So if she's a widow, she has higher value than most other women who's been in relationships, who's been in bad relationships. A widow basically has more value than any other woman who's been in a relationship. And a woman who hasn't been in any relationships has better value than her. It's typically how this shit works. So it would go a woman that's never been in a relationship, or so we go like virgin woman, um, a virgin woman, a woman that has that a woman that's a virgin woman, a woman that's been in a couple relationships but hasn't given up the peace leave, uh, a widow, and everybody else falls all the way down that whole entire list, basically. So if she has, because this is the thing that a lot of men always fail to realize, if she has a very bad past, because the sad part about that, men look at women differently than women look at men. A woman, Women typically view men who have high amount of sexual partners as a person with value. Damn. Whereas a man views a woman with high amounts of sexual partners as a liability, if you know what I mean, because there's the whole entire pair bonding thing, and there's a whole entire bonding thing when it comes to it. When it comes to relationships, the more relationships a woman's been in, the lower chance of bonding with a man. This is typically why you run into a lot of people who are getting divorces from their significant others. This is typically why you run into the 70% of women initiating divorces on men, because high chance they've been in multiple relationships. I'm willing to bet it's typically how that works. They've been in multiple relationships, so their pair bonding sucks to the point where they're always looking for better, or they're always looking to monkey branch up, or they're always looking for something else, or they've always, their pair bonding's just gone. It's shot for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of those things where it's like you realize as a human being, when you fuck up, you have to A, fix it, or B, let it go, or correct it if you can, or a mixture of both. So it's one of those things where you have to realize as a man your actual value, and you never want to place nobody over you. You never want to give somebody the power or the ability to dangle a carrot in front of you for all intents and purposes. You always want to have that discipline to control yourself from being manipulated or having that carrot dangled over your head. So at the end of the day, what you want is to be able to control yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's typically how this works. What's up, Yam? Um, you don't want to have to. What's up, Lana? And I already said in. Okay, you don't want somebody to be able to ever really hold. You never want somebody to be able to hold some as I call it, some some very fake value over your head or held some very fake position that they don't deserve. It'd be no different if I walk in your place and I take over your whole entire house. You wouldn't like that too much, would you? Like, think about that. If I walked into your house and took over your whole entire house, your accounts and everything that you are, how would you feel about that? How would that make you feel? Like, think about that really, and answer my question. Answer my question in the comment section below. How would you feel if I walked in your house, took over everything, your finances, your banking, your household, your refrigerator, everything? How would you feel if I just rolled in your house and took over your shit? Like, the sad part about that is the way you're feeling right now about that is the same way you should feel about a woman that imposes herself on upon you and overstays her welcome or oversteps her welcome or oversteps her boundaries for all intents and purposes. You should feel the exact same way about that person. Because at the end of the day, you're not finna let me just come in and take over your shit. You're not finna let me come in and just take over your shit and start rearranging your shit and taking over your refrigerator, eating up your shit, and taking over your bank account. You're not finna do that and be a happy camper for all intents and purposes. So why let a woman do that to you? Why give a woman that power to do that to you? Is what I mean by that. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you have to be able to 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 control yourself, and you have to be able to discipline yourself enough not to get taken advantage of. You have to be able to discipline yourself enough to always want to improve yourself and be a better version of yourself. The same way you always discipline yourself to take your ass to the gym every day, the same way you discipline yourself to follow your diet that you set for yourself is the same way you should discipline yourself when it comes to dealing with women and or get if you decide to get into relationships. Don't get into a relationship if you're going to relinquish power on a regular basis. Never get into a relationship believe if you believe if you believe that, you're not going to be able to walk away. Cuz I always say to men, never get into a relationship you're not willing to walk away from. Just never do it. Cuz it's totally pointless and it's unneeded and it's unnecessary if you can't walk away from it, because the minute you can't walk away from it, she has all the power in the world to walk away from it and destroy you. It's typically how that works. And the sad part about that is deep down inside, all women are sadists, and they're going to enjoy your downfall and or your pain on the way down, as they're on their way out. For all intents and purposes, they're going to enjoy your pain on their way down as they're on their way out. Because the sad part about that is your pain is their pleasure. No matter how you cut it, no matter how much you think she loves you, no matter how much any of this shit, your pain is her pleasure. This is typically why you can see women pitting two men against each other in a fist fight for no fucking reason whatsoever, besides the fact to make herself feel value, feel as if she's valuable, or she has a lot of value to that person for all intents and purposes. The sad part about that is if a woman is willing to do that to you, how does that show she actually loves you? If she's willing to put you in danger, how is it that she loves you? And it's one of those things where I talked about when I was out with my friend Rue, Black, Los, and Big. Um, we were all at a club just chilling, and there was this girl I was talking to. We weren't in a relationship. I was just talking to her. And the sad part about that, I've told this story before. She literally walked over to the area where all these men were and got catcalled and whistled at. This is going to try to come back to me and to try to either a make me jealous or make me mad and make me want to go over there and have to fight a bunch of men for no fucking reason, when in fact she shouldn't have took her ass over there in the first damn place. So she came back and go, well, the men over there, they whistled at me. Aren't you going to do something? No. Well, I think I think you should do something about it and tell them not to whistle at me and this, that, and the other. Why did you go over there? Well, yeah. Why did you go over there? My point exactly. Because the bathroom's over there, and you went all the way to hell over there. The bathroom's the opposite direction from where you were walking, lady. So why the hell did you go over there? Obviously, you wanted the attention that you got. Did you like the attention that you got? She's gonna shake her head. No. Yes, you did, because you wouldn't have went over there in the first damn place if you didn't want that attention. And that's typically how I talk to people when they do stupid shit like that. Like, no, if you didn't really want the attention, you wouldn't have took your ass over there to get that damn attention. And that's typically how that works. Because the sad part about that, what you ain't finna do, or what you ain't about to have me do, is fight somebody over some bullshit that you wanted to, some bullshit that you wanted to feel deep down inside, all because you don't know how to soothe yourself, and you don't know how to understand your own intrinsic value yourself. So you wanted everybody else to do it for you, and you wanted a bunch of other men to do it for you. Now you want to put me in a fight so I can fight over you so you can feel more valuable now. And that's typically how this shit works. Like, because the sad part about that, this is how it basically works when it comes to women. If a woman is putting you in a fight against another man, and you actually fight over that woman with another man, all other women see that woman as being valuable because a man's willing to fight for her or fight over her. That's typically how that shit works. And the sad part about it is when it comes down to it, that's exactly how women see that woman. They see her as like, this amazing woman because she has the men fighting over her. The more men, the merrier. For all intents and purposes, it's typically how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like, don't do some shit that you're not willing to actually get yourself into, or any type of abuse that you're not willing to do for all intents and purposes. Because at the end of the day, that fight is not for you. That fight is not for her honor. That fight is basically so she can feel as though she's important. That's all it is. Anytime you get into a fight over a woman, it's so she can feel somewhat important. That's all it is. That's all it would ever be. And the faster y'all figure that out, the better off everybody would be about it. But the sad part about that is everybody overlooks it and says, I have to defend my girl because my ego. You don't have to defend her. Question is, why does she put you in a position to have to defend yourself? Why does she put you in a position to have to defend yourself? That would be like me, Tico Tren, breaking the ranks and line, the defensive line, to go do something else, and all of a sudden y'all get raided. And everybody gets decimated. Why would I do that to my fellow brothers and fellow soldiers? If that person is really for you, they wouldn't put you in that situation. If that person is really for you, they wouldn't treat you the way they do. That's pretty much how that works. You never want to be caught in that situation in the least bit. You never want to be think of it like this. It'd be no different than being caught with your pants down. That's pretty much what she did. She caught you with your pants down. It's typically the best way I can describe that to you viscerally, if you're going to fight over a woman who got herself in a mess in the first damn place. It would be no different if, like I said, she went over there to all those guys to get all this attention from all those guys, and now she wants to come back to you to have you fight every single last guy in that section where the bathrooms didn't even fucking exist, when the bathrooms are, the opposite on the opposite side of the club that you're in. Like, no. Now I know your value. Now your value is really dropped. Now don't be shocked if I don't call your ass back tomorrow to go out on another date because you lost your value. You're no longer valuable to me, nor were you ever valuable to me. And it basically was a nice test for me to see if you how valuable are to me. And the sad part about that, men need to do this shit more often to see how valuable women are to them. Take them out to a club, see with how they act. If they don't act how you like them to act within your parameters or your within your parameters, then she's not for you, and you need to leave her and go date somebody else. It's typically how that works. Because I'm not fin to date somebody who's fin to go out there, act a fool, and make me look like a fool in the process of doing so. I'm not fin to be saddled up with a woman who's who's not really 100% there for me, and that's who's only there for her own selfish gains. Never saddle yourself up with a woman that's there for her own selfish gains. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be taken advantage of. And like Stephen Price said, welcome to the chat, Stephen Price, and what's up, a manly load? Like Stephen Price says, games is going. There's pretty much something that's going to get men killed for all intents and purposes. So never ever do that. The sad part about that is that's actually shocking coming out of Lana's mouth. Well, not really shocking, but normally we would hear opposite or anything like that for all intents and purposes. In true story, they are for one thing and one thing only. They're not to preserve your relationship. Let's just put it that way. But the sad part about that is at the end of the day, your value is attached to a man's value is attached to what he does and what he provides this world and how he feels about doing so. So at the end of the day, just as much as a man's a human doing to a woman, a man's a human doing to himself. Because if you ever notice, a man's value is in a work he does, which kind of sort of makes men categorize themselves as a human doing. And the sad part about that, you as a man, you're more than that. You're not just your job. You're your workout routine. You're a father. You're a brother. You're a son. If you decide to take that route, you're a husband. You're a boyfriend. You know, you're a fiance. You're wherever. You're pretty much you have a lot of value to you besides the fact that you're just work, just a work. There's more value to men than that. And the sad part about that is men get so wrapped up into what they do for a living. If they lose what they do for a living, they lose the sense of themselves, and then they become very depressed, and then they want to off themselves. Or as we always say, they want to yeet themselves for all intents and purposes, when in fact there's more to you than just that. There's more to you than just your job. There's more to you than, than Mesias for all intents and purposes. You're more than just your job. There's more aspects to you, and you're more multifaceted than just your job for all intents and purposes. So never get saddled up with a person who doesn't value you or is only there for their own selfish gain, because at the end of the day, if you're going to be fighting over a woman, I want you to think to yourself, why am I fighting over this woman? Is it worth it? And does this motherfucker actually deserve it? Or does she actually really deserve it? Think about that. That's typically how this stuff works. The cold hard truth about it, and the sad reality about it is a lot of people get saddled up with a lot of these people that don't deserve their love and affection. A lot of men do. It's so true. It's so sad. A lot of men saddle up with women who don't deserve their love, affection, and to be remotely deserve to be treated like a queen. Because a lot of these women are running around here acting like spoiled brats, or spoiled brats demanding to be princesses. You can't be a spoiled brat. I mean, they're running around here like spoiled brats demanding to be queens. When in fact, if you're running around here like a spoiled brat, you don't deserve to be a queen. You deserve to be treated the way you are, or the way you're acting, or the way you're being betrayed, or the way you or the way you or the way you're you know conducting yourself. It's typically how a lot of this stuff works. But yeah, always value a woman at the right value that she is. In summary, in hindsight, a woman's value is only a woman is only as valuable as her last relationship, or the decisions that the last decisions that she made. Basically, it's typically how that works. So she's only as valuable as her decision making in her last relationship. So if she's in a shit relationship, that is her value that she's assessed at. She's not assessed at any value higher than that, besides the fact that she chose to be in a shit relationship. If she's made multiple bad decisions, that is her value. Her value is based on the bad decisions that she made. If she's got STDs or a high body count, her value is very low, and that's where she's assessed at. Don't give her any more value than what she deserves. Don't treat her any more special than what she deserves. If she's that'd be like say you treating a woman more special than what she deserves would be like turning a hoe into a housewife. Is the best way to describe it to you. You treating a woman with more respect than she deserves would be like you might as well just wife up a hoe for all intents and purposes. I mean, you might as well wife up a hoe for all intents and purposes at that point, or you might as well just take a prostitute and make her your wife. So it's one of those things where you have to know your value. You have to be important to yourself. You have to love yourself. And you have to love yourself because at the end of the day, if you don't love yourself, you can't expect nobody to love you how you will want to be loved or want to be treated for all intents and purposes. Because if you don't love yourself, you don't have the respect for yourself, you're doomed to be disrespected and treated badly for all intents and purposes. So, yeah, never overvalue a woman or you're going to get screwed. That's my time for today. I would like to thank everybody for showing up for class today. Class dismissed. Y'all have a blessed day. What's up, Herm Williams? Y'all have a blessed day. Be good to yourselves. Treat yourselves like milk. Do not but spoil yourselves. Always improve upon yourselves, no matter who you are, from any walk of life. Like I said, if you're a man, woman, transgender, gay, straight, anything, or Apache helicopter, always improve yourself. Never settle for mediocre lifestyle when it comes to yourself. And I don't mean go and find somebody who can make your lifestyle better. Improve yourself within yourself. Because just because that person has a better lifestyle doesn't mean that your lifestyle is better. Doesn't mean you actually improved upon yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. So always improve upon yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. Never rely on somebody else to do it for you. Because it's your self-esteem, not their self-esteem. Your self-esteem would never be attached to their self-esteem for all intents and purposes. So always improve yourself. Learn all the time and learn from all your mistakes and always improve upon the mistakes that you make. I mean, always improve upon your mistakes and your downfalls to make them stronger and better so you don't make that mistake again another time and again and again and again for all intents and purposes. So be strong and stay tough. Stay red pill, MGTOW, and that's why it's BM. Love you guys. Have a blessed day. Adios.